We do a lot of work in condominium complexes, and even in planned communities we run into hazards sometime. Believe it or not, those are honeybees down in the irrigation valve. And I'll get to that a little bit later on in the video, and I'll show you what we did. We did not kill them. I wanted to get that clear right from the beginning. So what we've got is a group of liquidambar trees. And Liquidambar styraciflua is a native to the East Coast, and when we bring it over to the West Coast where we don't have the cold snaps, they grow big, they grow different, they grow wide, they grow heavy, and they get planted in tight areas. In this condominium complex, these trees were planted in many cases right next to the building, and they've been pruned many times over the years to keep them contained. So part of my problem is to identify all the old wounds as well as all the potential hazards. In this case, you can see there's a fireplace down underneath, so any of these branches growing over the fireplace have got to be clipped back so that there's not going to be a hazard from fire or breaking and falling on the house. But one of the difficulties is looking through the tree and identifying all the old wounds and all the old weaknesses. There you can see there's an old cut, and the branch that's going off of that is clearly growing on a weakness. Here's a spot where there's some interior growth that was never taken out, and if you look really closely you can see where that branch has been blowing in the wind and rubbing back and forth and back and forth. There's a better shot of it. You can see all the markings there where that branch has been rubbing. Over time, both of those branches will abrade and cause damage to both the branch and the trunk. So clearly that kind of stuff has got to go. So you've got to make lots of decisions while you're working. You can't just get up in a tree in a bucket and just cut everything back again, and shape it, because we're trying to resolve some of the issues. And identifying weaknesses or potential weaknesses. How weak is that wound? How much weight is off of that potential weakness? Here's a spot that I identified and I cut it off. I wanted to show you how much decay is on the inside of this. This is from an old wound, and it's sprouted back multiples, and each of those multiples got very heavy. You can see that in many cases you get explosions of new growth. There's some more rubbing. We got to get that out of there. So I need to get all of those inside branches out of there completely. It's tough. These trees really do not belong here. Years ago, the liquidambar was imported into our area because people thought it was so beautiful, and it is beautiful, but it's also a problem tree. Here we've got a spot where there was a small cut, and you can see all the multiple new terminal buds that are coming off of it. And you also have to bear in mind that these trees get very heavy seed pods. At this time of year they're green and they're really heavy, so you have failures everywhere. So with a pair of hand pruners I went through and I clipped out about half or more of all the new terminal buds coming off of this tipped off branch here. Anyway, so I spend a lot of time looking for potential weaknesses. Here's where I believe there was a cut made a long time ago, and it turned out to be just a small weakness, and it was clear. So maybe I shouldn't have taken that one out, but it looked like an area where there was a wound, where there was a cut. So I'm trying to reduce the potential problems. But even so, with all this work that we're doing, because of the nature of the size of these trees in such tight areas, these trees are going to have to be maintained at least every couple of years. If they wait 4 or 5 years, they're going to have failures everywhere, and it'll be like starting over. So we carried on. We had the bucket trucks for a lot of this work. Both buckets were quite useful. Look at that mess. As soon as I saw that, I thought, that's got to go, because look at how much weight was growing off of that weakness. And when you have failures in a tight community like a condominium complex or townhouses, you've got to remember that it's not like a single home where you've just got a few people coming through. In this place, you've got hundreds of people coming through and walking underneath these trees every single day. So I took this one piece out because it was growing over the house, and you notice I didn't cut it all the way down close to the other portion of the tree, because you have to allow for you want to make the smallest cut possible without getting into an area where the weakness of the future is going to cause the remaining portion to become a problem. So here Jorge's on the other side with a bucket. He's taking out all those inside pieces we were talking about. I got down, and this is kind of interesting. We were able to get to most of the trees from the street, but this one we pulled up on the lawn. Okay, here we go back to the bee situation. We called a beekeeper, and he was able to come out here and get all the honeycomb and all the bees and put them into a new hive. There's flashing back to a few days back. I was afraid to open that. I didn't want them to come out at me. But he got as much of the honeycomb out of there as he could. There was few bees that were still flying back. And interestingly, the yellow jackets were coming back. But we saved the bees. That's interesting, the pattern that the bees make when putting the honeycomb in there. So this one particular tree, we wanted to get the bucket up there, but we had to take it up on the lawn. So we always keep a lot of plywood with us. We keep probably 20 sheets of plywood on top of the bucket truck. And in this case, we had to drive up so far and then put more plywood up in front of us. It was a little sketchy move. For one, the sprinklers had come on and it was a little bit damp. Two, we're on a hillside and there was a tree close to it. Kaylin made a run of it, and unfortunately we got it up there without damaging any of the utilities or causing any problems with the lawn. If we would have driven off the plywood, I think the tires would have sunk in. But it made a huge difference in both speed and the ability to do a really fine job on these trees, because you can't climb all the way out to the very ends. And a lot of the pruning wounds were a matter of going up there where there was an old cut and thinning it out, reducing the masses. So, end of the day, I had to back it out carefully, being careful not to clip that other tree. And all's well that ends well. We keep a lot of plywood on the top of the truck, and amazingly, we use it all the time. We use it to protect windows, to lean it up next to walls. We protect air conditioning units, and in this case, we drive on it. And it gets beat up, it gets cracked pretty bad, and we have to replace it periodically. But there's how we store the plywood up on top of the truck. And you can see there's no damage to the lawn. We did really well here. It's kind of a little bit of a gamble when you do something like that. And across the street there was a crew working on a giant blue gum eucalyptus. And they had a bucket too. Well, thanks for watching. Yeah, right.